finance and I have a master's in international business. And I think that's something that we really need on the city council. We don't have really anybody there who's running a small business that's open 365 days a year. And we don't have someone that has the analytical ability to really delve into our budgets. I have, in my time here in Tacoma, I've worked 2 jobs. I've spent 11 years with 8 years with the Tacoma Rainiers Baseball Club as assistant GM and director of finance. And I've been over at the Grand Cinema for the last 11 years as their executive director there. Through that, got a lot of community experience out there and got to know a lot of people, and this is a lot of these values that we need to bring over to the city council along with this business experience, and I think we can really use it there. And I look forward to being that representative and voice for you all.
Thank you.
Thoms?
Thank you very much. My name is Robert Thoms. I'm a dad, a small business owner. I'm currently the deputy mayor of the city of Tacoma City Council. I'm also a commander in the Navy Reserves, currently stationed out of Japan. My time on the council has been focused on trying to make sure that your family's lives and those of my neighbors and my family have the type of quality that we deserve. And that means having a government that performs, provides the level of services that we pay our taxes for. So I'm very proud of my record on the council, putting more resources into infrastructure, focusing on lowering crime by putting the first new monies to hire police officers in over a decade, starting the crosswalk program that put crosswalks across the city, and our Safe Routes to Schools program. So there's just a lot of work to be done. It's very important to my family and to yours that we get it right. And I'm very proud to be here tonight, and I appreciate you all putting this on the time that we could come after council and I could put one of my kids to sleep. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Start off with an environmental question. Mr. Cowan, I'll start with you on this one. There was a recent Puget Sound Clean Air Agency meeting talking about the Targa South Sound Terminal proposal to expand to support the introduction of about 150 million gallons of natural gas to their facility. One of the interesting kind of factoids that we all learned at that session was that when PSCAA does their permitting, they really just permit on what that facility is going to emit. They don't actually take into consideration what that facility is going to emit, and then how does that impact the overall cumulative air quality in that space. So I kind of want to understand that a little bit. This position, number 2, covers Northeast Tacoma, covers the Port, Stadium District. There's been a lot of concern and complaints about the fossil fuel industry, the benzene releases, the smells, all that sort of thing. So if elected, what would you do to look at this kind of cumulative air quality monitoring? What particular would you do for that?
Sure. There's been different quality indexes that out there, and they're definitely showing that there's a lot of pollution coming out of the port, and you would expect that to some degree. But I don't think that we're paying enough attention to it, and all kinds of things that we're doing within the port. We need to focus on that more than we're doing right now. If you're talking about like the LNG plant, are you going to ask? I should ask this. Should I tell LNG now, or are you coming with that later?
Feel free to go ahead.
Okay, I will cover LNG now. So, that's one of the things that, as you mentioned before, that there's some pros and cons against it, but I'm against the LNG plant. I think the people of our city are speaking very loud and clear, particularly the people in the Northeast Tacoma, because they've done studies on their air quality and on particulates that they find on their porches, and they're finding all of these things falling out of the sky from there. And they're very concerned about it. They're raising their family in this kind of environment. And the LNG facility is something that we need to avoid, because the impact on us long term is locking into something that we don't need, and it's not proven that we're going to need that for that kind of lease that we're doing there. And we're really locking in. If you look back at the history of Tacoma, we all know that we have a lot of environmental problems. Why do we keep doing these same things over and over to where decisions that we make today are going to be the things that we're going to be talking about? Oh, why did we do that? And the current council, which my opponent is part of the process that has allowed all of these things out into the community. We need decisions made today that's looking forward to these things in the future, so that these are not happening continually. Decisions in the past shape the future, and it's not just a decision of whether you're for or against LNG now. What are the things that are going to be coming up in the future that we now allow because our planning has let us get there?
Great, thank you. Mr. Thoms, kind of a similar question, but a little tweak on this if possible. I know that some constituents from the Northeast Council, they were awarded a grant of like $10,000 just so that they install some air quality monitors.
Innovation grant, yeah, for
Right.
7,500.
Right. And so they were given the money was then rescinded, and there was, I know you were trying to work with Puget Sound Clean Air Agency and the Department of Ecology, I believe, to try to get those agencies to step in and say, provide some additional monitors or whatnot. But I don't think anything's come of that. So can you maybe give us kind of a status of where that is, but then also, how would you deal with this cumulative air quality
I mean,
monitoring
I
issue?
think, yeah, I'll answer your question that you asked, Phil.
Could you be a bit louder on the mic?
Hello? Is it on? All right, sorry about that. The question that you asked, and it's very much true, that the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency, Puget Sound Clean Air Agency, in my opinion, is not doing the level of regulatory, testing that we need. So some of the things they haven't tested for since 2009. And so when they presented to us on the council, that's part and parcel of why folks in Northeast Tacoma, if not all over Tacoma really, should have the ability to have real-time monitoring of what's in the air. That's the minimum. So the citizens in Northeast Tacoma, through the neighborhood council, we have innovation grants. They applied for one because they were so concerned that the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency wasn't doing it, the EPA wasn't doing it, the city, we do not routinely test air, that just wasn't being done, so they took it upon themselves to ask for money. So when the money came through, the city allowed it to go through, not really paying a huge amount of attention to it, because usually there are types of things that are less, I guess, challenging in what you would actually do with these innovation grants. And so when I stepped in, it was trying to work with the Northeast Tacoma Neighborhood Council to say, look, let's make sure if you have your own air monitor, that it plugs into a regulatory agency that can actually provide a remedy. Just having a monitor in and of itself does not give the type of results and the type of action that the citizens want. And so what we've been working on, I wrote a letter to the Department of Ecology asking them to come down here and do real-time air monitoring. I've done this before when we transferred Point Ruston over to the new owners of it back in 2006. I was on Senator Cantwell's office, and when there was many concerns about the particulate matters there, with the cooperation of many labor people that were worried about the work that was being done there and the safety impacts of that, we put real-time air monitoring there. The EPA's been doing it ever since. And that allowed the workers to feel safe, it allowed the community to understand what was happening, and it gave us real-time monitoring of what was actually in the air. What concerns me the most is that at the local level, we don't have as much control over it. And frankly, I can't find enough citations by the Clean Air Agency to really make a difference. So I'm just beyond dealing with them now. It's time to elevate it to the level of the Department of Ecology. We're working to set up a meeting with our state representatives to have them put pressure on ecology, because the letter that they sent back was basically, well, we don't really do that, we don't have the staff to do it, and this, that, and the other. But what I promised to my Northeast Tacoma residents is that you have the monitor, that's a guarantee, but I want it to plug into something that actually gets the results that need to happen. And that means plugging into a regulatory agency that can actually figure out what's there and find the people that are putting it in the air and make sure that the community's safe.
I'm kind of curious, do you think the way that the PSCA does their permitting though, where they just look at what the site's going to emit, do you think there should be any changes there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know anybody in this room. Does anybody that wants to know less about what's in the air, raise your hand. Nobody wants to know less. They don't want to know less than what's in their peanut butter. They don't want to know they want to know more about everything. And so the fact that our regulatory environment here, which I believe Washington is a state to have a proud history of it, the fact of the matter is the stuff is accumulating. We know it's accumulating. We just don't know what all of it is. Some of it's, if you talk about some, they say it's metal spheres. Some say it's, different types of things in the air. And my responsibility is to protect people's lives and make sure the community's safe. And so we're going to get to the answer, and the next step for me, if we don't get it from the state legislature, when we meet with them, is to write a letter directly to the governor saying we have no recourse, or ask Mr. Bob Ferguson if he and the insurance commissioner want to come down here and talk about the liability of having this stuff in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Tom, we'll start this environmental question with you. This is about the tide flats and urban regulations. So we know that the regulations are, planning commission's working on them. The last incarnation that I saw, again, it covered new fossil fuel new fossil fuel facilities so their regulations get sound, but not against the existing facilities. So I'd like to understand, what is your stance? You support the interim regulations. You obviously voted to have the planning commission pursue them back in the spring. Do you support them? Do you support the addition of the existing, kind of expansion of the existing facilities? Do you address that?
I mean, I have similar confusion that you had at one level. It seems like it's ebbed and flowed quite a bit. I mean, over a year ago, I stated very clearly that my vision of the future of Tacoma was less industrial than its past, period. I said it in an op-ed. So how we get there, and I said we should start the sub-area planning process. We should have started it last year. It probably could have been done 5 or more years ago. So I'm in the mindset, get the interim rules in place as soon as possible so we can then move on to the sub-area planning process, which will have long-term forecasting of what's actually applicable, what is currently happening down there, what can be done into the future. So the interim rules, I just want to get whatever product that they send over to us, make sure it meets the concerns that have been shared with me from citizens, and then move on to the more substantive sub-area planning process, because that's going to set the future for the next 50 to 100 years, and it's going to be unequivocal. It's not going to be for a part-time, it's not going to be sometime, it's not going to be a few things. We are going through every single permissible use down there and figuring out what the citizens of Tacoma value in the port and in the tide flats. And I look forward to doing that, and it's going to be hard work, and I think that's why experience and being able to work on these issues is extremely important for this race.
So it does sound like you support covering the existing facilities as well and any expansions on
I'm
those.
respectful that the planning commission is going to come to us with a set of recommendations. I've voted as much for them as against them, things that we don't think they come up with it that meets muster with what I'm hearing from folks. But it's changed so much in the few months that they've been dealing with it, and we're waiting to get something back from them so we can really discern what they've heard in some of their commission meetings as well. But I definitely am supporting the rules.
Mr. Cowan?
Well, let's talk sub-area plan versus the interim regulations. So he was supporting the sub-area plan, and it came up to the city council, and there was a big outcry about it, because when you head forward with the sub-area plan, what it does is it locks in, it allows anything to happen while that sub-area plan process is going on. So he pushed this out there to do it, and then you can say, oh, I'm for the sub-area plan and we want to see what we're doing, but by pushing it the way he did, it would allow anything to happen while you do this process, which takes years. And if you know businesses, if they know that some process is taking place, they're going to try to cram in everything that they can before that product comes out at the end of the several years. So for years, you're going to have anything happening. So there was a huge public outcry. It was one of those really ridiculously long council meetings where everybody was coming and saying, hey, we need to do it differently. And so they came up with the interim regulations. So he proposed that. And what happened at that meeting? He wasn't at the meeting. So everybody's there, and you've got this really long meeting to discuss all of this and on his proposal, and he wasn't there. So the council, in his absence, voted 8-0 to do the interim regulations, which is slowing us down to do a lot better than it would have been under his proposal.
Great, thank you. Let's turn to some social justice questions. Mr. Cowan, your website discusses the need for increased transparency in city council decision-making. You note, for example, that you want to ensure that the focus remains on the people of our city, not big corporations or moneyed interests. In what ways do you think the current council is influenced by these interests? And are there specific procedural changes you would like to see the council make to improve transparency?
Well, I mean, what I just talked about is kind of one example of that. You get organizations within the port who are wanting to preserve the status quo for a while, and then you push through different things that allow that to take place. I think there's so many things that we're making decisions before we talk to people. People are consistently telling me at the doors, we didn't have a chance to get into this before it happened. If you look back in the past, we're talking about the LNG, and we're pretty much saying, oh, it's a done deal. Well, where was the public input before that? Or we're talking about, oh, we wish we didn't have the facility for the immigrants down in the center. Well, that's there. We can't do much about it because it's there now. Why are we not doing these things ahead of time and getting the public involved so that we're planning further in the future rather than reacting to things that have already happened? We've got a big problem with that, and we're just not getting out there to the people because the people don't like these things, but then we're kind of stuck with them. We need leadership that's going to take forward and project these things in the future because, 4 years ago when he ran for council last time, the LNG was not on the table. So we weren't even talking about it. So what 4 years from now are the things that we need to be anticipating to make sure that we're not having these same problems in the future? We need leadership that is going to anticipate and try to work with the community to make sure that we're not having these same debates 4 years from now.
Mr. Thoms, would you like to respond?
Sure, I'll take a crack at the last question, a little bit of the last question too, but I think transparency is absolutely paramount in any form of government, right? Be it city, state, or what have you. And so I was very proud through the process of the last year and a half of a lot of the tumult that's been there to extend what I thought was a very ridiculous and really indefensible level of notification that the city previously did for projects, which was 400 feet. Be it a soccer field, be it a plant, the radius that we had was just goofy. And in some instances, we would have and it's just sort of in code that they just do 400 feet, you know, and with all the advent of emails and the ability to reach out to people, we could make it, you know, 2 miles. I asked for it to go over a half mile, and we're there now where we do a half mile, and I'm willing and have asked the planning commission to work with us to give us a recommendation to go as much as 1.5 miles to 2 miles, because I don't think you can ever give people too much notice. And so from big things to small things, that's been a problem with the city. It is my hope that we will continue to push to make significant changes on that. As it relates to projects and whatnot, I spoke out against what I thought was an overly industrial port in tide flats many years ago. And I've been saying it since I've been here, because I could have lived anywhere in the country. I'm not from Tacoma. I moved here because I wanted to start my family here. So I'm absolutely invested in the environment here. It's one of the reasons why I chose the city to live in. So the types of projects, LNG incidentally has been in play for about 10 years. These are types of investments that are decades long in the making. Now, whether they were located in one place or another, size and scope, those are the type of things that I think we'll get into with the intervals and also the sub-area planning processes, looking at the size and scale of these types of projects. I don't know that you need to build an 8 million gallon tank to do what amounts to potentially just one customer that being towed ships that take 200,000 gallons, right? So those, to me, it isn't whether LNG is good or bad. I think that is still, I believe others have said it, and I believe you and I have talked about it numerous times, Todd. I can understand people's interest in talking about whether it's a bridge or not a bridge, but these are types of things that take years. I mean, when I was still in the Senate office, we were working with the EPA to talk about what were the next things that we were going to do to meet attainment issues at our ports, both Seattle and Tacoma. And so the bunker fuel stuff was uniformly recognized as not being the way to go. But you know, now, what I think is most important is if we set the stage of what we're gonna tell people we're not gonna do into the future. And I think that is extremely important, because I don't know that anybody's tripping over themselves to invest in Tacoma from an industrial perspective, because everything that's coming down the pipe is so battled right now. So I think we need certainty for citizens, absolutely, and then we also need to set certainty for the business climate that we want to create jobs, or we want them to be the right jobs. And that requires us communicating better with our citizens and letting them know about every single permit. And as we talked about earlier with the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency, sometimes they're doing permitting and they notify differently than we do. All agencies in the city of Tacoma are going to provide notification better and more substantially than they have in the past, and that's a fact. I will pass the law myself if we do not get it out of the planning commission.
Great, thank you. So we're running a little bit late. We'll finish up with one last question, and it'll tie into what you were just talking about, Mr. Thoms. We'll start with Mr. Cowan on this one. It's really the vision for jobs. We hear this argument of jobs, and kind of gets old after a while. You can move beyond that dichotomy. What do sustainable jobs look like for Tacoma, Mr. Cowan?
Yeah.
And how do you get there as a councilman?
Sure. Well, there's multiple things that we need to be doing. One, I mean, we really need to focus on the small businesses in the community. I mean, it'd be nice if Amazon came here and rescued everybody and everybody could work at Amazon. But realistically, that's not what's going to happen. We need to be growing the small businesses out there that can become the next, not Amazons, but become the next anchors in within Tacoma. There's example, there's a professor at Tacoma that started a biotech incubator in the downtown area. It's located near the university and near the hospitals, and he's been tired of watching his students graduate and then move up to Seattle for a job. We need to really support things like that in our city that can become anchors for us. There's land available downtown to do different things like that. I think we need a vision for what these various pieces of land in our city can be used for. Right now, I feel like if some developer comes up and says, I want to build 1 million condos, we'd say, yay, go do it. Well, we need the housing, but what's our vision for what those housing connect to as far as jobs? We don't want to just create housing to create more people driving to Seattle for work, because that exacerbates the traffic problems that we all know we have, the environmental problems of people driving there, and it doesn't help our economy here as much because they need safe, walkable neighborhoods that you can, work and live in the same area. And I'm really supportive of all of that. So, and within the city, we have a reputation here of being really bad on our regulations, and it's really difficult to open up a business. We need to have people with the city who are very responsive and can get you through that process a lot faster. The regulations that we need are for safety and things like that. We don't need to bypass those, but we need to get you through that process faster. There's numerous times I've heard businesses that are sitting there with their location, paying rent, waiting to open the doors for some kind of permit. We all know the failure rate of small businesses is really high, but when we're increasing that chance because they're sitting there paying, they're running expenses before they ever get a chance to run revenue. And we need to decrease that for them, and we need almost like a concierge kind of service within the city, saying these are the things that you need to do, and not playing tag, trying to find all the people, because you may know how to do a business, but you don't know how to do the permitting process. And we don't make it easy for people to say, these are the checklist of the things that you need to do. It's almost up to you to just figure it out on your own. That's not your cup of tea, that's not what you're doing there. We need to make it easier, and then we can get those small businesses growing out in the community instead of being an obstructionist with them. And I know everybody says small businesses are good, people promote them, but what are we actually doing to do it? We have to just do more than just talk about it.
So what do you think, Mr. Thomas, of concierge service in the city? What's your vision and how do you do it?
I don't know that that's a vision for me. I think I break it into different categories. My vision is to make this place the safest, most livable city in our state. And I think when you do that, when you invest in the right type of infrastructure that says you care about your community, that you create the type of curb appeal, that you lower the factors that make people concerned about whether they want to move into a community supporting our schools, making sure that our crime is lower than it needs, than it is currently. I think those are the type of things that set the environment where you don't bring a huge company here, but one of you in the audience has a child, and that child is the next Bill Gates, or the next child is the great author that's going to rise up through Tacoma. I mean, that's what I think the vision should be, is making sure that this is the right place for people to live. And so that encompasses a lot of things we talked about today. I mean, that's saying we're going to make sure that we're not going to have continued environmental degradation to our community, which I think is absolutely key to this. I've lived in a lot of places. I've been fortunate in the Navy to live all over the country and been around the world numerous times. And it is very hard to mess up the waterfront unless you mess up the waterfront. And I would say our history suggests that we've messed up the waterfront, and our future should be fixing it, reclaiming it, and putting it back into play for citizens here. I've yet to meet anyone who I brought here that when they look at the sound, when they look at the mountain, don't wonder why they're not here. And so as we bring on new assets like Point Rusted and reclaim things that were previously degraded in our community, that's my type of vision, is saying we are going to create jobs, we're going to increase the economy. If we increase the economy, have high-tech jobs, create the type of investment opportunities here. I think the largest thing I hear from businesses is that they do not believe that we have infrastructure commensurate with what they want to build here. That ties into stuff like click, it ties into stuff like what our roads look like, and then if you have no other place in your mind that you've heard about and you think we're bad in crime, that's problematic too. We're #1 in property crime, which is terrible, and that just can't stand. So what do? You make sure you take that down and move the numbers down and say that we're safe. So that's sort of my vision. But for practicality's perspective, absolutely. The city can do a better job. All governments can do a better job of setting the right type of business environment. I'm very proud of working with businesses to the degree that I've actually sanded down sidewalks to make sure that they were ADA compliant based on some of the cattywampus rules of how they judge one sidewalk versus another. Some businesses don't have to put ramps, others do. What businesses want is certainty and confidence. They want to invest in a place where they're certain of what they're going to get into, and they want confidence that the city's going to be the right partner. That is what I bring to the table as your city councilman. That's why I want to continue running, because I believe the government should be a partner, a valuable partner, a trusted partner. And we're at a time when a lot of citizens, including those who are in this room, have some trust issues with the court, with the city, and that is for us to step up and make sure that you understand we are trying to do the very best we can with the resources that we have to make sure your life and your quality of life is great. So I think that my vision is just make sure Tacoma is looked upon as a place that people are investing, wanting to invest here, and they have confidence in us. And I think right now we're moving in that direction, but we have some mighty decisions before us. This sub-area planning process is probably the most important policy decision the city's had to deal with in at least 40 years.
Great, thank you very much. Round of applause for the panel.